Greetings and a warm welcome to everyone. I'm Sreushi, the assign moderator from Clarinet. It is my proud privilege to extend a heartfelt welcome to all the delegates joining us from across the country. We are indeed fortunate to have the valuable support of esteemed doctors, and I express my gratitude to each one of you for dedicating your time to be with us today. Allow me a moment to introduce our platform, Clarinet. It stands as one of the largest live digital CME platforms in India, providing a space for doctors to create and share medical content. Now, I would like to extend a special welcome to today's distinguished speaker, Dr. Amitav Banerjee, sir. Sir holds degrees in MBBS, MD, postdoctoral epidemiology. Sir is professor of Department of Community Medicine at Dr. D.Y. Patil Medical College, Pune, India. And today, sir will be talking on the topic vaccine hesitancy strategies to improve vaccine uptake. So, without any much delay, sir, now I would like to hand over this session to you. You can proceed with the talk, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Sasi. It's a pleasure to come on this platform. And today's topic is vaccine hesitancy. So we have to understand what is vaccine hesitancy. Whether it has to be totally curbed or can it be a starting point for discussion and debate. So I would just like to give a different perspective to vaccine hesitancy, as I feel that it is being stigmatized nowadays. So it is a hesitancy is a normal phenomena of humans for anything new, and it rather than it being stigmatized, it should be a starting point for debate. And we have seen why views on vaccines are getting polarized. I mean, these would be the talking points. There are two camps that doesn't serve the purpose of science, and vaccine hesitancy cannot be generalized. I mean, even I, as an experienced doctor, may have full. Uh, I would really like some vaccines to be given. I have no hesitation about some vaccines, but there may be some vaccines which, if I read the literature, if I read the past experience, I may be hesitant. So it cannot be a blanket. I mean, if I express my reservations about one particular vaccine, the tendency nowadays is to club anyone who questions anything as an anti-vaxxer. That is a very unfortunate, and that's a very wrong way of defining vaccine hesitancy. So there are benefits and there are risks also from vaccine. There are two sides of the coin. So this we will discuss how perspective formed from personal experience. I mean, I will explain that each person, his or her past first-hand experiences, they develop the hesitancy or they develop the confidence. So that we will discuss, and then we have to respect the other person's views rather than ridiculing or stigmatizing, which is becoming very frequent nowadays. No one has the final answer to vaccine. These are recorded, these are hard facts. We cannot wish away that all vaccines are bad or all vaccines are good. So the final answer nobody has until unless we do proper data mining. And then vaccine mandates. I mean, that is certainly not the way to eliminate vaccine hesitancy. That will increase vaccine hesitancy. A thing is good, we have to mandate it. Propaganda and publicity is again not the way to eliminate vaccine hesitancy. These are social marketing techniques. These are techniques used to sell fast food and cola drinks, not a serious intervention or a medical intervention like vaccines, which should be the doctor's prerogative based on his, her knowledge and the particular patient in front of him or the individual in front of him. The risk-benefit analysis has to be tailor-made. Every individual doesn't have the same risk or the same benefit. Transparency, empowerment, and accountability is the key. By the public health officials, by those who are promoting vaccines, they have to be very transparent. What are the benefits? What are the risks? Empowerment means that ultimately the individual should be having the power to make the decision after being informed properly, and accountability. During the pandemic, we saw a very sorry state of affairs. Vaccines were indirectly mandated. I mean, everybody has experienced it. You cannot go outside, you cannot go to a mall, you cannot travel. Almost it's mandated. But when there was a public interest litigation in the Supreme Court, the government gave affidavit that we are not responsible because vaccine was voluntary. It wasn't mandated. So if there is any adverse events, the individual should approach the local authorities who force the vaccines. So this means this is lack of accountability. I mean, whatever people are passing the buck. So this will lead to vaccine hesitancy. I mean, these are I'm talking from the point of the common person because I am in touch throughout the pandemic subsequently, and I was in public health since 40 years. So I have been interacting with all sections of the population. So I am giving the world as it is, not trying to sugarcoat it, but as the situation is and what forms the perspectives. So these are the things which where people develop vaccine hesitancy. So if we want to improve the uptake, or if we want to judiciously or sensibly use the vaccines, we have to be very transparent and we have to leave it ultimately to individuals. And more we try to force something, the more hesitancy develops. So this is a very nuanced thing. I mean, it cannot. And there are examples from some countries like Japan, where they have not mandated, they have recommended, and there the physician decides depending on the patient's background. And this, unfortunately, the push and the pull has generated the most, no other mental illness generates as much uh, debate and discussions and disagreements as around the vaccines. So this has, if powerful tools are double-edged, vaccines proves the point well. Vaccines have helped as well as harmed, depending how thoughtfully they were deployed. So vaccines are strong weapons. They has to be judiciously employed. They should not be left to bureaucrats or local authorities without the involvement of the doctors. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, all the administrative authorities mandated vaccines in many countries, in European countries and other countries, school authorities, college authorities. But now there have been certain litigations in the European countries, and what the judgment has been that the doctor is responsible. And unfortunately, when the things were being pushed, the doctors were sidelined. And now when the buck is passed to them. So these not this thoughtless, yeah, and lack of accountability, lack of owning responsibility, all these leads to vaccine hesitancy. Because I am taking vaccine hesitancy as a neutral term. I am not promoting it or neither discouraging or neither I am stigmatizing it. It has to be taken in context. As I said, there cannot be a generalized vaccine hesitancy across board, which it is made out to be. Each vaccine is different. Each vaccines have different efficacies. Each vaccines have different indications depending on the local disease endemicity. So, and if it is wrongly used, a good vaccine wrongly used will promote vaccine hesitancy. And a not so good vaccine, but judiciously used will increase the confidence of the people. So regret, vaccines are getting polarized instead of being balanced. So you have to balance. It's not the vaccine per se which is good or bad. It is the disease which it is supposed to prevent, how serious it is, how much is the risk of the individual who has been offered the vaccine, and the environment also. What is the incidence prevalence? What are the, so many factors are there. And like the Shakespeare said, as for men, for vaccines also, any side effects will remain in memory. Any serious adverse events, any death from vaccine, or any good which the vaccine does. Vaccine is supposed to prevent a disease. If a prevent a disease, that is a non-event. That will be forgotten. I mean, nobody will realize that vaccine has benefited. So one has to be extra cautious with the adverse events. You have to very, very judiciously involve the people in the decision making. The evil that men do lives after them. That evil and best of the vaccines may have a very rarest of rare side effects. That is an evil which will live after the death of the person. but the good is often entered with the bones. So this is true for vaccines as well as humans. So we have to use it very thoughtfully, vaccines. But unfortunately, nowadays it is promoted, marketed, and propaganda film stars are promoting it like it is a some food item or something. So that is not a science, that is propaganda. That is not evidence, that is propaganda. The more the propaganda, the less the evidence. Unfortunately, that's what's happening nowadays. Then during the pandemic, the people lost faith in even good vaccines. Most of those who are hesitant, they are hesitant against the good vaccines because what was promised that COVID nudges were given, and they were promised that it will cause 90% protection. Then it came down to 70, 80, then 60, and then within 6 months there is, then first it was said that it will check the transmission. It did not check the transmission. So gradually people will lose faith in that vaccine. That is the stages of hesitancy. And now, subsequently, there were reports of serious adverse events like myocarditis and other things. Definitely, I mean, any rational person will develop hesitancy. So we should not stigmatize it. We should have to introspect. The medical profession should introspect what went wrong. And ultimately, one of the vaccines that AstraZeneca Covishield was withdrawn by the manufacturers because of the VITT, vaccine-induced thrombocytopenic clottings and other things. So it's a, I mean, we have to face the hard facts. They are uncomfortable facts, but we have to face, because then, unfortunately, good vaccines also got blacklisted. Which is, that's why I said we cannot have a general hesitancy or general acceptance. It depends which vaccine and which disease. So this is again, I am talk, this is the way CDC's recommendation. I am just see what is the, this is from 6 months to 6 years. These are the vaccine serial from birth to 6 years. If you see, there are around 40 vaccines, 40 jabs by the person, the child is 6 years old, and all types of, I mean, there are some of them are really good vaccines. They have prevented deaths and disease, but we have to see whether now the conditions, we have to see whether the living conditions are good in well privileged neighborhood. Some of them may perhaps not be required. We have to do continuous monitoring, surveillance, and disease rates, and the monitoring of adverse events. If you say there are 40 vaccines, including influenza, and they have added COVID also for children, where the children do not suffer from COVID. I mean, the whole pandemic. So there is so many vaccines, and it is like so many aircrafts are landing, but who is monitoring? Where is the air traffic control? If there are adverse events, who will know which vaccine? I mean, this is the ground situation. I'm saying I am not saying that vaccines should be stopped, but I said they should be rationalized. If it is rationalized according to the disease burden, then perhaps people will have a better, they will have less hesitancy. So because we are going the American way, because now additional vaccines are coming, where we have got some examples I'll be giving where it is not needed, you're adding, because you have to keep in mind if you're adding vaccines, whether those vaccines which may have outlived its utilization because of the perhaps elimination of the disease or better host immunity, better child nutrition. So perhaps there can we reduce the vaccines, because now we are adding every day. Now there is a vaccine for bird flu. There is a vaccine for, so many vaccines are in the pipeline. There may be hundreds of viruses which will be discovered in due course of time, because we are surrounded by viruses, and a disease will be attributed to it as it is happening. So can we have hundreds of vaccines and every day? I mean, we have to think. I mean, this logistics. I am just saying the logistics of too much of immunization. And as a doctor, I will start having hesitancy. So this is a Japanese, as I said, Japan had a very has a very rational vaccine policy. It has revised in 1994, and all mandates were removed, and it was recommended. Vaccines were recommended that these vaccines protect against disease. The Japan Pediatric Society still recommends vaccination for children. It is recommended, but it is an individualized approach. The Revised Act also promoted individual vaccination based on physician assessment of each child's health. You see, so physician can, because some children, nothing is hard and fast. One disease will kill one child, one disease may just not have any effect on a child, on a particular, on another child. Example is measles. A malnourished child is highly susceptible to measles. So it is very strongly to be given to a malnourished child, below, particularly below 1 year, or younger the child. But a child who is got good nutrition and 5 years, 6 years, older child, 3 years, that child will have minimum morbidity mortality from measles. This is the evidence as on today. And David Morley, who had worked all his life among malnourished children and also affluent children, he was a British pediatrician. He has recorded that the morbidity mortality of measles is 400 times more severe in the malnourished child compared to a normal child. Now there is a big hue and cry. In Texas, there is a measles outbreak. Two deaths have occurred, and the detailed case sheet shows that the childs were older, 5 years, 8 years. They shouldn't die of measles, and the detailed case sheet shows they died not directly due to measles, but they died because they had a bacterial pneumonitis and they were not given the appropriate antibiotics. Mycoplasma pneumonia, the antibiotics given did not cover mycoplasma pneumonia. It did not include azithromycin, which covers mycoplasma. So improper antibiotics were given and death was due to that, not due to measles. But there is a big hue and cry. So, but definitely deaths from measles in a underprivileged community, I would definitely say we require mass vaccination in that. So this is just one example. So for each vaccine, we have to have a personalized approach. So individual approach also, one-to-one discussion with the physician. That is what the Japanese examples have recommended the routine vaccines depending on the local epidemiology. And it is voluntary. Some vaccines are voluntary, that these vaccines are there. Now, what promotes vaccine hesitancy? I'll give some examples. Recent irrational mass vaccination drives. People now search the net, they know everything, and concealment of facts from the people. So, two examples I'll give. This is the recent year, about a month back. Japanese encephalitis vaccination drive has been started in Pune. The target is to give Japanese encephalitis to 10 lakh children. 1 lakh children have school, 1 to 15 years. Imagine. And once if you see, again, if you see that it's a good vaccine to prevent where there is Japanese encephalitis. There are endemic belts in the country, like Northeast, wherever there are rice fields. Rice fields, Uttar Pradesh, Gorakhpur is highly endemic, then Assam, West Bengal, wherever there is rice, because the mosquito which transmits Japanese encephalitis, they breeds in the rice fields. They breed in the rice fields and in the rural areas. And there are pigs are there, pigs they amplify, the pigs are there, some ardid birds are there, some cattle are there. That maintains the cycle. And 1,000 children may get infected, one may, unfortunately, it's a serious disease in children, definitely. But certainly not in Pune. Pune is an urban area, it's industry, there are no rice fields, 100 kilometers around Pune. Where are the vector mosquitoes? Where are the rice fields? Where is the Japanese encephalitis? I tried to check up the data. You can check up. A person will check up individual now. There, last 10 years, there have been just 10 cases of Japanese encephalitis. And the last case was 2022, one case. In a population of 50 lakh, one case of Japanese encephalitis. No deaths have been reported. No details are there. 10 cases in 10 years, and you are giving a vaccine to 10 lakh people in Pune where it is not needed. Perhaps this vaccine may be needed somewhere in the Northeast, somewhere where they may be not having the vaccines. And people will lose faith in this. If any educated person will see why, what is Japan, how it is transmitted, he will just see the net and why you are giving, where is the rationale? It will promote it has promoted vaccine hesitancy to me, means as far as Japanese encephalitis in Pune is given. If Japanese encephalitis in West Bengal or endemic area Gorakhpur is given, I would recommend it to my people, acquaintances and family members. But here people have asked me in Pune, I said no. So I have hesitancy in Pune, but not in Gorakhpur, not in Assam, not in here regarding Japanese vaccine. So therefore, it's not an absolute thing कि ये तो anti-vaxxer है. पुणे में मैं anti-vaxxer हो जाऊंगा. नॉर्थ ईस्ट में प्रो वैक्सर हो जाऊंगा, गोरखपुर में प्रो वैक्सर। तो ऐसा नहीं है ना, यू हैव टू सी एवरीथिंग ना, वी आर नॉट सीइंग द बिग पिक्चर। This is, I don't know, this is a government program. What are the experts are doing? Ministry of Health, don't they have experts? Don't they use it judiciously? Or are there any some other conflicts of interest? I don't know. Mysterious. Worse than that, there's a BCG trial going on, and this news item came, I think, about a week or a couple of weeks back. The big BCG vaccine trial is going on in the country, 50 lakhs population in 22 states. And I say irrational practice, and secondly, lack of transparency, concealment. So this is the Times of India report, Bombay. Many adults in Bombay who are in the trial, BCG in city, not knowing they are part of the government study. Imagine this. You are supposed, according to in Government of India's ICMR guidelines, any trial in humans, you are supposed to be well informed, informed consent. They asked, the newspaper has brought out people, when they asked, they said, I was told this vaccine would prevent me from tuberculosis. I won't get tuberculosis. And nothing was told that they are part of a trial. I will get better, I will get here, I will not get TB, my TB get. And when asked, when people asked the health workers in the trial, they say, we are got targets. We are given targets by any way you have to enroll so many people. And if we tell them everything, we will not get the participants to enroll in the trial. Is this the way in the 21st century? And most of these participants were very poor people. So they exploit, again, vulnerable group, again there's ICMR. So this is a reminiscent of the Tuskegee trials, which was done in blacks in America in 1932. Syphilis studies, they followed a cohort, about hundreds of people who had syphilis, the blacks in Tuskegee who were working on a plantation. They were illiterate, they didn't know, they were not told anything. They said, yes, we will take care of your health, and they were given some tonic and vitamins and followed through. And in 1932 trial started. 1947, the penicillin was discovered, which was a cure for syphilis, all stages of syphilis. The drug was withheld from them because the study wanted to see the natural history. And some of the doctors, whistleblower, they reported to the seniors. The seniors said, we will do an inquiry. They did an inquiry, they hushed up the matter. Then it leaked to the press, and 1972, the trial was stopped. Many people died, participants died, unethical, they were harmed. And this was again the American government public health department which were doing the trial. And in 1970, it was stopped. And 1997, Bill Clinton, the president of America, had to do a public apology for these Tuskegee trials. And many people had died. There were just a few survivors, handful of survivors. Clinton did apologize to them. And this is the same thing we are doing today. This was in 1932. Now in 2025, we are doing almost 100 years later. We are doing this type of study where the participants are not aware they are part of the trial. And the BCG vaccine is not a very promising vaccine. It is there for more than 50 years. And there was a trial, randomized control community trial, single put trials, which found zero effect of the BCG vaccine. And then they say, hey, we can continue because in children it will prevent severe disease and all that type of thing. For that also, the evidence is that it hardly 20% protection even to children. Adult zero protection. That was the single put trials, because those days vaccines were manufactured by the public sector. There was no competition, there was no profit motive, there was no conflict of interest. That was one of the very good randomized community trials which found no effect. And now we are doing a trial, we are trying to dig out the same thing. And there was a shortage of TB drugs last year for many months, which is actually treatable. And we are trying to do a trial on a vaccine where won't it lead to vaccine hesitancy? Won't people who read about this unethical practice during a trial, will they trust the data? If there is no ethics in the enrollment of participants, would there be ethics in the actual analysis of the data? Won't it, as a doctor, I would develop vaccine hesitancy. So these things are the way to improve. Be honest, be transparent, answer to question, have debate. So these are, and then of course, perspective, as I said, personal experience, health workers. As a health worker, I have seen deaths from vaccine preventable disease. So I would definitely recommend some vaccines. And whereas in affluent communities, due to good housing, they don't see, but they will see the adverse events. So they will think if vaccines harm, they do not have. Whereas, so we have to bring together on board both our experiences and discuss with a healthy, transparent, and open debate. That is the way for sustained confidence in vaccines, not by curbing and saying stigmatizing and ridiculing. That will increase. So when asked about, so I think everybody should have vaccine hesitancy. The anti-vaxxer is also not hesitant. You can't call, because he is fixed in his idea vaccine do not work. I try to tell them the benefit. I bring the data, mortality data. I try to make that person hesitant, because nothing in science is final. If you are very confirmed, you're moving towards faith, not science. Similarly, the person who says all vaccines are good and blindly across the board promote, he is also not vaccine hesitant. I try to bring to notice the adverse events, however rare. So I also try to make, so vaccine hesitancy is a scientific way of thinking. So agitated vaccination, science has residual uncertainties. Certainty tends toward faith, not science. Are we moving towards a new faith instead of science? And now, best example I can give is Plotkins. Most medical doctors will know what vaccines, the master, the Bible on vaccines, the author since 50 or more than 50 years is Plotkins, the editor. He is in his he is the doyen of vaccines. Recently, he co-authored a paper in the New England Journal of Medicine, funding post-authorization vaccine safety science. Daniel A. Salmon, Walter Orenstein, and in red font, you will see Stanley A. Plotkin. He is a doyen of vaccine, the final authority. He says post-authorization vaccine safety research requires adequate and timely funding directly linked to the introduction of new vaccines, just as vaccines for children and vaccine injury come. So he has agreed that we have not done adequate post-marketing. Once it is in the market, vaccines, there are no serious studies to see the adverse events. Because he says during the trial phase 1, 2, 3, the sample size is limited, cannot be captured adverse event. So this is from the paper only, these paragraphs. The widespread vaccine hesitancy observed, they also have admitted that the COVID flip-flop on vaccines created vaccine hesitancy. Then the public wants authorities to mitigate and prevent rare but serious adverse reactions, which no longer seem rare when vaccines are given to millions or billions of people. You see, now the mass vaccination, whether it is a pandemic or whether it is and then we saw Japanese encephalitis vaccine being given in a Pune where there is no Japanese encephalitis. It is like you are giving life jackets to people in desert where the people are drowning in the river. Life jackets are required there. You are sending them to. That is what is the Japanese vaccine in Pune. And then there will be side effects. There is no Japanese encephalitis death in Pune, but any rare will leave vaccine hesitancy in the against all other good vaccines also. That is the tragedy. Addressing this is an important, transparent matter will increase vaccine uptake. So he says when you see, he's saying when billions of people are giving the vaccine. And if you remember the first chart where 40 vaccines are given to a child up to 6 years in America, if you have 40 vaccines and given to billions of children all over the world, there will be, you can multiplies the rare adverse events will pile up. And nobody knows which vaccine is causing. Each manufacturer will blame the other manufacturer. It is something like a number of flights landing and there is no air traffic control to handle the flight. They are crashes headlines. But here the adverse events are scattered and not well investigated. So this will all promote vaccine hesitancy. So definitely, this is again from the paper by Plotkins and co-authors in New England Journal of Medicine. Last year only it was published. So they have given the list of common vaccines, that oral polio vaccine. They have given the list. They have tabulated that some of the things we know the biological mechanism, adverse events. Most of the vaccines, we are not aware of the biological mechanism. Like the first vaccine, it is introduced, identified 1969, oral polio vaccine. That adverse side effect, adverse reaction, which is rare, of course, it causes vaccine associated paralysis, polio paralysis, vaccine associated. And the biological mechanism in the last column is understood because the attenuated virus sometimes reverts back to the virulent form. So that's why now they are phasing out the polio, live polio, going for injectable. So this was definitely this was effaced these adverse events when there were large cases of polio paralysis, and one odd case got clubbed with that. But now there are no cases of polio because of the control. Vaccine also contributed, and hygiene sanitation also, because it's a waterborne infection. So, but one vaccine associated will stand out. So similarly, swine flu influenza vaccine, Guillain-Barré syndrome, not understood. Guillain-Barré syndrome is a side effect of the swine influenza vaccine, and it is not understood biological mechanism. And Guillain-Barré itself is a very mysterious disease. And another biggest mystery was recently in Pune, few months back, I think couple of months back, and I think there were more than 200 cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome in a span of 1 month. So still, it's a mystery. Then rotavirus vaccine. Rota vaccine. So that causes intersusception, intestinal obstruction. It just telescopes the intestine, and it can cause, and in a remote area, it can cause serious surgical emergency and surgery, not understood. So similarly, the other vaccines are inactivated, influenza vaccine, Bell's palsy, hypothesized, not understood. Some of the, so these are the research gaps. So almost all, we don't know, except for the oral polio vaccine, we don't know the biological mechanism. So there is a lot of research gap. You see, up to 2024, yes, given. So Guillain-Barré, not understood. Many of the AstraZeneca vaccine also, Guillain-Barré, they have mentioned. Then AstraZeneca vaccine, again, clotting disorders, hypothesized mechanism. AstraZeneca was Covishield in India, given large scale, so it had clotting disorders. Then mRNA vaccine, myocarditis, not understood. AstraZeneca, Guillain-Barré. And ultimately, AstraZeneca was withdrawn from the market because of, again, it had clotting problems. So these have to be addressed at proper research. It's a, you see, I mean, there is no easy answers ki just film star ko le aao, Amitabh Bachchan ko le aao, to vaccine hesitancy dur kar do. That is short-lived propaganda. You require serious scientists, serious researchers, serious doctors, not celebrity doctors. There are a lot of celebrity doctors nowadays who come on TV and promote vaccine A, B, C, D, whatever they come to know, without knowing the mechanism of action, without knowing the disease which is preventing, without knowing the epidemiology. There are many examples, and we are seeing the public health programs and public health trials by Government of India, like BCG trials or the Japanese encephalitis, how irrational it is. Any rational person will develop hesitancy. So what is the way? And again, as I said, those who are anti-vaxxer, they also require some education that no, there are data to show that vaccines have helped. So these are the data. 20th century to 2000, and the percentage reduction in smallpox was eliminated 100%. That is one of the greatest year, because that was a vaccine which was good, and that was a disease which was very serious. 30-40% mortality, morbidity with scars, blindness, and other. Diphtheria, we hardly see any cases now. Almost 99.99% diphtheria has been reduced, not eliminated. That is the problem. If you not eliminate, you have to continue, because then it can surge. And we don't see diphtheria cases, but we may see an odd adverse event. That also has to be studied. Measles has come down 99%, mumps 99. So all this, and particularly paralytic polio. Rubella syndrome, of course, congenital rubella syndrome, a pregnant woman. Then, so these are the tables to show that vaccines work, and there are data to show that vaccines harm. So there has to be vaccine hesitancy by both parties. There is no final answer. So this is the way forward. More needs to be done to inform the public. Some people don't take vaccine, and we blame, stigmatizing is bad. We should not treat people like children. That is the patronizing. That's the mandate, patronizing. We should not treat people like children or bring film stars or bring somebody who faked death, HPV vaccine. HPV vaccine again has got a bad history of similar to the Tuskegee trial. HPV vaccine trial was done in 2009-10 by Bill Gates Foundation and ICMR among tribal girls, again vulnerable group, poor girls, and during the trial 6 of them died. So imagine trial made a small sample, and now they are planning to roll it out. So that, and one has to do research before safety research. It was denied, and there was a 72nd Joint Parliamentary Committee report which indicted the ICMR and the Gates Foundation for unethical HPV vaccine trials. So that will lead to vaccine hesitancy. So all these things should be resolved. People are smarter than the average doctor and need the full information. Average doctor doesn't have time to be smart because he's so busy, he can't keep up what's happening. Whatever vaccine is promoted by pharma, he says, okay, hai, vaccine de do. I don't blame them. But I mean, responsible doctors should study before advocating a vaccine. Summary information can flaws and can be exploited by anti-vaxxers. I say anti-vaxxers definitely, if you don't give proper information data, be truthful and detailed with full referencing of publicly available data. Then what does the people who do not believe in vaccines say? Sanitation eliminate more? That is true to some extent. This was proposed by great people like William Farr, founder of medical statistics, may be true to some extent, but cannot be relied upon totally, particularly for and particularly for countries like Asia and Africa, or sanitation has not improved in many pockets, slum area, village, rural area. There is no water supply. We had so many problems of hygiene, sanitation, which persist like in the Second World War in the European countries. So we have not reached that stage. So we require vaccines to prevent serious diseases like measles and maybe other things, depending on the vast country we have. Even Japanese vaccine required in some parts where there is Japanese encephalitis. But you give it to other parts, people lose, those who require it also will not take it. So this is the tragedy. We are messing it up badly. Indian example, sanitation improved, but in sanitation not improved, but infant mortality rate has come down after childhood vaccination. Infant mortality in the 1970s and 80s was 140 per thousand. And most of the deaths were measles, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, neonatal tetanus. Tetanus is again a good vaccine because mortality from tetanus is very high, particularly newborn tetanus and other tetanus, 40% mortality, 30%. And tetanus tox spores are present in the environment all around. You cannot eliminate it. And vaccine is effective, toxoid rather. And even after you recover from tetanus, you require a vaccine because the toxin is so powerful that it is so small to cause it. With small concentration, it can cause tetanus, not enough to elicit antibodies. So now infant mortality, as I said, in the 70s was 140 per thousand. 140 in children used to die within 1 year after birth per thousand births. Now it is less than 30, 25. So it has come down, but sanitation, is not there, particularly in the poor and rural areas. But infant mortality has come down because of the vaccine. So that vaccines do work, but we are overreaching it since the public sector were closed, manufacture, and everything was given to the private sector. So we require more scrutiny and more sensible vaccination. So then, of course, there are some now. Modern medicine is getting so much of criticism. All self goals they are doing, that other practitioners they say, okay, ancient medicine Ayurveda did not have vaccines, but Ayurveda has a vaccination in its philosophy. Ayurveda has no philosophical opposition to vaccines. Scholars like Bhaskar, Ganekar, and some scholars have shown the idea of vaccination in harmony with classical Ayurvedic view. Practice of inoculation against smallpox had been in existence since hundreds of years. So those vesicles. So that vaccination is not anathema to the Ayurveda, neither to homeopathy, where like cures like in attenuated form. So that should not be the crutch to lean on that these ancient medicines did not. They had. In fact, some say the modern genre got idea from Ayurvedic literature. So this is the nudge which was used in COVID is presumptions and experts that the experts know best doesn't work. You have to show the evidence, you have to show the disease. The speech of anti-vaxxers should not be curbed and stigmatized. Vaccine hesitance. Very obnoxious anti-philosophy, anti-science. It is anti-science. Really knowing something demands giving reasons and answering objections. The way to refine the skill is to encounter and take seriously people who earnestly object to your views. It is often the case that your views are only partially true. As a science man, there is always a residual uncertainty. Similarly, people's views are also partially true. So both are partly right, partly wrong. You are also partly right, partly wrong. The other person who is opposing is also partly right, partly wrong. So one should come together to the table. One should engage in disagreement respectfully. That is the way to eliminate hesitancy. Obviously, mandates should never be resorted to. Mandates is something, vaccine passport, vaccine, they are very dangerous things. Vaccine is a medical treatment, cannot be compelled. You take an informed consent for anything. If vaccine works, people will take it in their own interest. Mandates are not needed even to eradicate disease. Even the person Henderson who eradicated smallpox did not propose mandates, even against smallpox vaccine. Variability in mandates across nations means there is no science behind them. Mandate is bureaucracy. There is no disease for which herd immunity is 100%. One, marginal cost and natural immunity are included. There is absolutely no need of mandates. Human factors don't work and always breached. Counterproductive, long-term harms. Mandate, you create more vaccine hesitation. Incentives for pharma to bribe politicians and policymakers. This is one of the serious side effect of mandates. It gives incentives to pharma companies. Now most of them are in the private sector. And for to bribe politicians and policymakers. Directly, indirectly incentives. Breach of human integrity and liberty. To restore public trust in vaccines and more importantly in public health institutions, focus on transparency, empowerment and accountability. People pass the buck, people will not trust them again. Science instead of politics or commerce should guide strategy. Using film stars and celebrities to promote vaccines is social marketing, not science. Experts and institutions with conflicts of interest should not influence vaccination policies. Sound public health infrastructure, enabling robust adverse events monitoring, then only the faith is there. If there is adverse events are just brushed off, people lose faith. Revive public research institutions like Kasoli, Pasteur Institute, and Kuno. These are the public health institutions which were manufacturing vaccines. This requires revival without conflict of interest, so vaccines are developed. This is the least we can do to bring back public trust and improve coverage of essential vaccines. Essential vaccines. As the country develops, most diseases come down and some due to vaccination as well. On the other hand, in less privileged regions, vaccines have important role. The issue is nuanced and taken out of context gets polarized. Perspective from personal experience. This is again summing up what I have said earlier. I have seen vaccine preventable deaths which haunt me. I have met parents whose child got maimed or died due to vaccine. They haunt me more. There are no easy answers. We certainly need more serious scientists doing serious research to resolve these issues instead of frivolous celebrities and movie stars promoting vaccines like soft drinks or fast food. Ensuring transparency and accountability will improve vaccine uptake in the long run. This is the only message I can give how to improve vaccine. And we have messed it up so much and we continue messing it up. There are no easy answers. These are the references, as I said, whatever I have spoken is from the public domain. It can be cross-checked and these are the world as it is. So I am not sugar-coated anything. So I have finished and I think I can stop sharing the screen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your comprehensive talk, sir. It was
Yeah,
really very informative, and we have received few questions from the participants. So, with all your permission, I'm sharing my screen, sir.
please.
Thank you. And yes, here is the first question.
What role does transparent reporting on vaccine safety and side effects play? Definitely, this is the actual thing to improve the vaccine uptake and to deal with hesitancy. Transparent reporting on vaccine safety and side effects play to public. You see, for vaccine safety, we should have the results of trials, randomized control trial, phase one, two, three, it should be in the public domain. Unfortunately, though the vaccines we have got in the pandemic for 5 years, they were given emergency use authorization. Still, the results of the RCTs are not in the public domain. So that gives rise to definitely the public perception is affected and side effects also because we should have a perfect vaccine reporting systems, adverse events reporting system, adverse events following immunization, AEFI, which the Supreme Court also gave the directions in the case Jacob Puliel and Prasant Bhushan versus the Government of India on vaccine mandates, which the Supreme Court, the government gave affidavit, it is not vaccine mandate, it is not mandatory in India, it's a voluntary. So that there is a Supreme Court ruling but indirectly there is pressure. And in that same ruling, the Supreme Court said that the government should put in place a very robust adverse events monitoring system, adverse events following AEFI system, which is still not there because for that you require a equitable distribution of public health services right up to the remote areas. There has to be proper investigation. So that until that is there, we improve our public health services, the equitable distribution of human resource, health resource to identify the adverse event. It is like including in our immunization program. It is just like launching number of super fast trains without proper tracks, there will be derailments. So this is definitely, this question is good and I agree with it. This is a very important way to generate confidence in the public. How can mobile clinics and outreach program help overcome? Yeah, this is okay. It is partly, you see, as I just answered in the previous question, you have a mobile clinic, you have a mobile camp, and you go to the interior where there are no health services, give a vaccine. In fact, during the pandemic, there were pictures also, people going on cycle and giving vaccine, people crossing the river and giving vaccine. They were hailed as warriors. But suppose they give the vaccine and come back. And if there is a side effect, there are serious adverse events, who monitors that or who attends to that? Who treats that? So it only partly logistic. So you have to have wherever the vaccination is done, there should be some emergency medical aid available. And that's why I have my reservations about the school vaccination program. School is a place to study if there is some anaphylaxis, some adverse events, which can happen with any medical. Who will give the treatment? All vaccination should be given in the health center, the hospital settings. So this mobile clinics and all will, this is almost like a hit and run operation. So if there is any harm to the person, who attends to that? So this is only partly answers the question. Thank you.
So these are the all questions, sir, which we have received from the delegates. Thank you so much, sir, for answering all the queries. And I would also like to thank all the participating doctors also. And I would also like to request you all to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram pages for more medical updates. Thank you so much, sir, once again for your valuable time and for being with us. So with this, we are concluding the session over here for today. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Anand.
you. Good night, sir.
Good night.